All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm delighted to be here with you all today for the Compton Lecture. I want to thank the Compton Lecture's Advisory Committee for their excellent choice of speaker. I was very excited when I saw Ben, because obviously we had been provosts, so we knew each other for quite some time. I'd like to thank our guests from Howard University for making the trip from DC to MIT. And of course, to our very special guest, Dr. Ben Vinson, thank you for spending time with us today. After the lecture, I'll have a conversation with Dr. Vinson, drawing on questions submitted in advance. But first, a little bit of context. In 1957, MIT established the Compton Lectures to honor the memory of MIT's 10th president, Karl Taylor Compton. Dr. Compton led MIT for almost a quarter of a century in two roles, first as president for 18 years, and then as chairman of the MIT Corporation. He guided MIT through the Great Depression and World War II. Gives you a little bit of a context. And in the process, he helped the institute transform itself from an outstanding technical school for training hands-on engineers to a truly great global university. A renowned physicist, President Compton brought a new focus on fundamental scientific research, and he made science an equal partner with engineering at MIT. In addition, during the war, he helped invent a partnership between the federal government and America's research universities. In its long history, the Compton Lecture has brought to MIT eminent leaders in science and technology, education, economics, journalism, and politics. Today's speaker is the president of Howard University, a distinguished historian and inspiring higher education leader, Dr. Ben Vinson. Dr. Vinson was born in Rapid City, South Dakota, but he has lived in many places around the world, spending his younger years on military bases in Italy, where his father served as a master sergeant in the US Air Force. Since he was a child, he has been passionate about history, an interest he notes was encouraged by his mother, an elementary school teacher. At Dartmouth, he earned a BA with a double major in history and classical studies, and at Columbia, a PhD in Latin American history. Dr. Vinson has spoke often about the value of studying history, which he says not only provides necessary context for our lives, but also, and I quote, gives depth to our days. His scholarly work centers on the African diaspora with a focus on Latin American history and culture. He was awarded the 2019 Howard F. Klein Book Prize in Mexican History for his book, Before Mestizaje, The Frontiers of Race and Caste in Colonial Mexico. His latest book, Frank Etheridge, Musician of the African Diaspora, chronicles Etheridge's experience playing in interracial orchestras while traveling abroad during America's Jim Crow era. Complementing his distinguished career as a scholar, Dr. Vinson has held important roles in academic leadership. I got to know him when we were provosts, as I said, at the same time. I was at Duke, and he was at Case Western Reserve University. We were part of a group of 10 provosts, or 12, it varied, who got together regularly. And Dr. Vinson brought such a wonderful sense of energy, positivity, and forward motion. He really elevated the whole group. After Case Western, Dr. Vinson went on to serve as a dean of George Washington University's Columbian College of Arts and Sciences, then as vice dean for Centers, Interdisciplinary Studies, and Graduate Education at Johns Hopkins. And on September 1st, 2023, he took on his current role, becoming the 18th president of Howard University. So just a bit about Howard, although I'm sure most of you are familiar. It was founded in 1867 in Washington, D.C. It's one of the country's leading historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, and also a leader in the STEM fields. The Howard and MIT communities share many core values and goals, including a focus on research that goes beyond the lab and the classroom to make a positive real-world impact. And it's an exciting time for Howard. Dr. Vinson has made it a priority to expand research opportunities for the university's faculty and students. In one realization of his vision earlier this year, Howard became the first and only HBCU to achieve a Research 1 or R1 designation, the highest classification for research excellence. Dr. Vinson also shares MIT's dedication to shaping the future of AI, helping to ensure that the AI tools we develop and adopt are broadly beneficial to society. His talk today is called AI in an Age After Reason, a discourse on fundamental human questions. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Dr. Ben Vinson.
Thank you so much. Oh, okay, well, yeah. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is an absolute delight to be here in what I believe has been recently announced as the hottest school in America. Although I think those of us at Howard would like to give you a run for the money on that. But truthfully, it has been a delight. I have spent the afternoon engaging with faculty as well as with students. And the conversations were incredibly stimulating. I am here today to talk with you. And also, before I say that, I also spoke this morning with members of the administration on partnerships and really thinking about how we can forge greater ties between MIT and Howard. And I am pleased to report that there are a number of ways in which we can fortify existing partnerships, but also forge some very meaningful new ones. And so I'm excited about those conversations, which are now formally underway. So the title of my talk, AI in an Age After Reason, a discourse on fundamental human questions. This was a title that was chosen very deliberately. Because today, I want us to interrogate the ways we are inhabiting a new age with all of the rapid technological advances that are surrounding us. I want to spend a lot of time asking some questions, which I'm going to do quite a bit during the second half of my talk. I want you to remember just how intimately connected our present and even our future is to our past. I also want to connect with the so-called previous ages that we've talked about, that we often talk about in history, and some of the issues about humanity that emerged in these various ages. And then I want us to pause, to wrangle with the concept of reason. This is a topic that I have been wrestling with for some time, indirectly through some of my research. In fact, as a scholar who focuses on matters of race in colonial Latin America, it has been my life's business to study human populations during moments of time when legions of people were assigned from birth by their societies to be without full capacity to reason. Now, there's a certain irony in all of this, because my research has been anchored in the so-called Age of Reason, and that is the Western world of the 17th and 18th centuries. This was a period where the mind was construed as a liberating force for humanity. Science and the power of intellect were deemed to bring forth a greater understanding of the world, bearing the potential to develop humans into a higher order. The forces of intellect were viewed as liberating us from older, primordial habits, worldviews, and processes that supposedly kneecapped human development. But at the same time, in the Age of Reason, the full power of intellect was hoarded by a select few. The true ability to reason was not believed to be available or even achievable to all. Now, this justified horrible human consequences stemming from supposedly justified rape, supposedly justified killings and conquest, justified slavery. Through trade and colonialism, as populations around the world intermingled, cohabitated, got married, formed families, had children, as new human phenotypes and races proliferated and entered the world, in fact, my own work on Mexico has shown that there were over 25 functional racial and caste categories in Mexico at certain moments during the 18th century. Some of those are captured in this slide here. one key question was always asked about these emerging racial groups. Can they reason? And based upon a recipe of supposed biological inheritances and environmental factors, not unlike the set of instructions embedded in algorithms today, the very capacity to reason was prescribed by a combination of race and place, relegating some people in certain parts of the world to be subhuman categories, and therefore suited for certain subordinate tasks in the emerging world economic order. To reason, then, has been a deep subject in history. It has categorized so much of the history of the West and has played such an important part in the shape of today's modern world. 17th century Cartesian philosophy perhaps sums up some key aspects of the Age of Reason well. The mind and body could be deemed as separate forces. Knowledge was seen to be gained by questioning your senses. Doubt became an essential and necessary avenue to discovering truth. And succinctly, in the famous words of René Descartes, the ability to reason had a singular, profound outcome. It was he who in 1637 famously said, "I think, therefore I am." Flash forward to now. Or at least let me take you to a moment in my life just a few months ago. I cannot forget the moment when I was sitting at my desk at home, drinking a cup of tea, when I decided to run a quick query on ChatGPT. I don't really remember exactly what I was looking for, and that's probably because I spied a button at the bottom of my iPad that drew my attention, asking me if I wanted the technology to reason. I froze. Now, although I now know that this button is really there to show users how the machine model arrives at particular conclusions and answers, revealing the steps and the logic that it follows, still, at that moment, the idea of AI actually reasoning shook me. To me, the prompt is loaded with the history of human reasoning, as much as it is a marker of the advancement of technology. As we move towards equipping AI with general intelligence, there remain, in my mind, fundamental, unsolved questions in our own human journey of reasoning that are now still unreconciled. Notably, the rifts in human populations sparked by the Age of Reason have not been fully bridged. Let me restate it again. Reasoning over time has not just served to define what is human and what it means to be human, but who could be fully human. In some ways, this question still lingers as cultures jostle with differences of perceived intelligence that justify subordination, creating hierarchies of human life. Whether supported and influenced by class markers, ethnic origins, race, nationality, or other cues, we have not fully subscribed to an evenness in humanity and the human condition. And unfortunately, we see this played out in the politics of our world over and over again. We see it in our social interactions, in who we choose to include or exclude at times in our clubs, in our cliques, in our societies. So the simple, innocent ChatGPT query that stared me in the face on my iPad screen that evening. Would you like for me to click, or would you like to click, Mr. Human, for me to reason for you? This prompted me to rethink the simple Cartesian philosophical question posed by René Descartes. If it thinks, then what are we? If it reasons, are we moving towards an age after human reason? Just what are we in an age after it learns to reason? And what might that mean for the fundamentally human questions of our humanity? As I take a stab at some of these ideas, let me start first by coming clean, by making a series of what I call my AI confessions. These will set the stage for what I'm about to say for the rest of this afternoon. I confess that I believe that artificial intelligence is not merely a technological advancement. It is potentially a force reshaping the very foundations of society, humanity, and the academic institutions we represent. I also confess that as leaders in education and research and universities, and all of us that are in these spaces, that we have a critical role to play in addressing the philosophical, ethical, and existential questions that AI presents. I confess that I believe that MIT is a very special place to steward the work of the future AI. And finally, I confess that you will need partners in that work, and that places like Howard University are absolutely vital for that work. As I make my confessions to you, I am mindful that I'm also a man of three selves. Together with my confessions, these selves enable me to pose a series of questions about what I believe are fundamental to what we must face in an age after reason. First, as a historian, I recognize how past technological revolutions, from the printing press to the Industrial Revolution, have disrupted societies, reshaped economies, and redefined human identity. AI follows in this trajectory, but with a fundamental difference. It does not merely extend human labor. It challenges human cognition itself. If AI ultimately inspires a tilt towards STEM disciplines in higher education, contributing to a potential crowding out of the humanities, what will this mean for our intellectual and cultural evolution? Does a world with fewer humanities truly represent human progress? Or does it mark an irreversible shift where technological rationality eclipses humanistic inquiry? This leads me to my second self. I am a humanist. And in this aspect of myself, I am guided by enduring questions of humanistic inquiry. What does it mean to be human? How do we define and pursue justice? How can we cultivate lives of meaning and dignity in an era of profound technological transformation? The humanities, rooted in empathy, creativity, and the pursuit of wisdom, offer indispensable tools for interrogating the moral and existential challenges posed by AI. They remind us that technological progress must serve humanity and not the other way around. But can AI and the humanities truly coexist? Or are we witnessing a reconfiguration of human knowledge itself? AI's rise in our everyday world forces us to ask, what kind of future are we constructing? Does a world with diminished emphasis on the humanities signal a new evolutionary stage of humanness? One in which our narratives, our histories, our philosophies are increasingly mediated, perhaps even rewritten, by intelligent machines? If, as many have argued, the humanities are an interpretation of the collective human experience over time, our human odyssey, are we willing to trade the humanities for something else? A new equivalency, one more infused with technology, one that incorporates the evolution of machines as central to human knowledge. Can we afford to have less humanities? Does their erosion undermine our ability to narrate, reflect, and comprehend the richness of human existence? Finally, let me turn to my third self. As the leader of a historically black college and university, HBCU, I bring the perspective of an institution that has long served as both a product of and a response to systemic inequities. HBCUs have always been at the forefront of intellectual resistance, cultural preservation, and social transformation. This moment of AI emergence offers important mission-driven opportunity. We have an obligation to ensure that AI is shaped by diverse voices, not by historical biases encoded in algorithms. So these combined perspectives, my three selves, the historian, the humanist, the HBCU leader, allow me to frame our discussion today not only as an academic inquiry, but as a moral imperative. AI is not just about technological progress. It is about power. It is about justice and the very essence of what it means to be human. Let me take yet another step back into history for just a few moments. To fully understand AI's significance, we must situate it within the broader context of industrial revolutions that have shaped the trajectory of human progress. The first industrial revolution, powered by steam and mechanized production, transformed economies from agrarian to industrial ones. The second major revolution, driven by electricity, facilitated mass production and global connectivity. While the third revolution, the digital revolution, introduced computational technologies that digitized information, communication, and commerce. So I believe that AI marks a fundamental break from these past revolutions. Unlike previous technologies that have extended human labor, again, AI targets cognition, creativity, decision-making, and even emotional intelligence. Indeed, we must begin to understand AI not simply as a technological tool, but as an actual evolution of machines, a veritable revolution in what we might call machine time, just as we interpret evolutionary or revolutionary stages in human time. And if that is the case, then what does this tell us about the trajectory of our own evolution? If AI is the next step in machinic revolution, does AI fundamentally redefine human evolution in parallel? Now, as I say this, I am also quick to raise red flags. I want to caution us against going too far with some of this, because history repeatedly reminds us that every major technological breakthrough has provoked both exaggerated euphoria and moral panic. The printing press. It was feared for spreading heretical ideas. Electricity. It was thought to disturb sleep and damage health. Industrial automation sparked revolts over job losses. Radio and television ignited anxieties about propaganda and societal decay, and the internet was heralded as a tool for global enlightenment, but also feared as a weapon of misinformation and surveillance. AI is no different. It serves as a Rorschach test for society's deepest hopes and anxieties. Optimists, they see it as a productivity revolution and a leap in human evolution, while pessimists warn of mass surveillance, bias, job displacement, and even existential risk. The reality, as history suggests, will likely fall somewhere in between. AI will likely evolve through a cycle of inflated expectations, disillusionment, and eventual pragmatic integration. Just my bet. Now, this is why universities must serve as the intellectual compass in this transformation, separating real risks from speculative fears, ensuring that AI is neither demonized nor blindly embraced, but developed with wisdom, with ethical oversight, and with societal adaptation. And students in this very room must carry these lessons forward in the workforces that they will inhabit. Moreover, because AI compels us to reflect on how it augments human capability, it also challenges the very foundations of human decision-making, governance, and ethics. If previous evolutions expanded humanity's reach and its efficiency, AI extends into our intellectual and moral lives, prompting us to ask, what is the role of human ingenuity in a world where machines can innovate? How do we navigate a future where algorithms make decisions once reserved for human judgment, such as legal rulings, medical diagnoses, and artistic creation? And who ultimately controls this technological transformation? Democratic institutions, corporate monopolies, or an elite few? The advent of AI forces us to revisit humanity's oldest inquiries and reimagine them for our current age. These enduring questions, deeply rooted in philosophy, ethics, and human experience, they begin to acquire new urgency and complexity as this technology begins to reshape our world. So I need to now turn to another phase of this presentation. I think the ascendancy of AI compels us to reinspect some of the fundamental human questions that we have been asking throughout time. As the tech grapples and grows with its own ability to reason, and as we assist AI in that very process, we are, in a way, forced to revisit some of humanity's oldest inquiries and reimagine them in our current age. Now, there is some urgency here as the technology reshapes our world. The enduring questions we must revisit are deeply rooted in philosophy, ethics, and human experience. First, we have always, as a species, been deeply engrossed with the question of origins, our creation, and our creator. With AI, the creator, or its creator, has never been so well known. For the first time in history, a creation knows its creator better than we may know ourselves. But does AI's knowledge of its origins confer it with greater insight? Or does it highlight a paradox? An intelligence that knows everything except the most fundamental question: why do we exist? And as AI grows more advanced, do we risk reducing our own existence to a set of predictable data points? Is the essence of our human saga, our capacity for unpredictable and unfolding journeys, is this at risk in a world of predictive algorithms? Another timeless question that we have wrestled with over time and that we must revisit surrounds the nature of intelligence. Just what is intelligence? Is intelligence simply the ability to process information? Or does it require emotions, creativity, empathy, and intentionality? What happens, or what will happen, when machines teach the humanities? As AI increasingly seeps into our phones, our computers, our wearables, and even in the virtual world, does it become a mirror through which we see ourselves more clearly? Or does it distort our understanding of what it means to be human? Does AI's algorithmic processing of human knowledge through sorting, categorizing, and optimizing it, does it ultimately yield deeper insight, or does it flatten and mechanize the organic nature of complexity of our human thought? Can intelligence exist without physical embodiment? Is human intelligence uniquely tied to our senses? Are there forms of reasoning, moral, ethical, or spiritual, that will remain uniquely human, resisting replication by machines? Does intelligence inherently require the ability to experience subjective consciousness? And if so, can AI ever truly achieve this? I believe that how we define intelligence will ultimately shape AI's trajectory and the ethical frameworks that will guide its development. Universities must lead interdisciplinary collaborations across computer science, neuroscience, philosophy, psychology, and the humanities to address these complexities. This is not just a scientific question. It is a human one that will influence everything from education to global governance. Now, another question that has often been asked is, what is the good life? This is a really important one that, of course, has emerged in the classical world with some alacrity and with some profundity. Philosophers like Cicero argued that the good life centers on the pursuit of virtue and wisdom. Can AI enhance our pursuit of virtue and wisdom? Does it risk automating critical aspects of human reflection? Does a world that increasingly defers to AI for decision-making and artistic creation, and even ethical deliberation, does that reflect a more advanced society? Or does it signal a quiet surrender of human agency? What happens to the deeply personal process of human reflection and introspection when external systems and technology begin to define meaning on our behalf? How does AI reshape concepts of labor and leisure and purpose, especially as we move towards what some categorize will ultimately be a post-work society? Can we find fulfillment in a world where AI may handle creative tasks, even caregiving roles or decision-making, all of which are seemingly central to human identity? What new forms of alienation or connection might arise as we rely more on machines for interpersonal relationships, ethical deliberation, or artistic creation? Today, I believe that universities must ask whether AI can serve as a tool for the pursuit of virtue and wisdom, and must address some of these central questions. As AI expands its influence, we must critically evaluate whether it deepens human experiences or narrows them into more algorithmic optimization. What is the nature of knowledge? This is often asked. Can we trust AI-generated knowledge, especially in an era of deepfakes and misinformation? And I know a lot of work is being done on that right here. What happens when machines begin creating new knowledge? What happens when they begin conducting research? When they begin running experiments? When they do those experiments at scale? How does this challenge traditional roles of human creativity in academia? How does delegating knowledge creation to AI, how might that impact human intellectual agency? And how do we ensure that AI systems are fair, unbiased, and accountable, so that they circulate knowledge that is also fair, unbiased, and accountable? Can we create a global framework for AI ethics that prioritizes humanity as a whole? Or will AI's development remain dictated by a small set of powerful actors? Again, universities must rise to the call. Our faculty, our students, our administrators must redefine how knowledge is created, how it's validated, how it's shared. Digital literacy transparency in algorithms, and critical thinking must become cornerstones of education. Moreover, institutions should safeguard the human capacity to interrogate and challenge the authority of machine-generated insights, ensuring that the technology remains a tool rather than an unquestioned arbiter. What is justice? What is the ethical obligation of those who design AI, and how do we ensure that future generations inherit a technology shaped by justice rather than potentially exploitation? Closely related to this, how do we address the historical inequities encoded in AI systems, ensuring that marginalized voices shape its future? What is intergenerational justice in an AI age? Just stated another way, how do we ensure that the benefits and risks of AI are equitably distributed across generations so that no one generation bears the brunt of negative repercussions? Zooming out a bit and thinking from a global perspective, can we create a global framework for AI ethics that transcends national boundaries and prioritizes humanity as a whole? How do we hold those who design, deploy, and benefit from AI? How do we hold them accountable for AI's societal impacts, particularly as they might perpetuate or exacerbate existing structural inequalities? I believe that HBCUs, with their legacy of social justice, are uniquely positioned to lead this conversation, centering equity and accountability in AI development. Drawing from their historical commitment to dismantling systemic oppression, HBCUs can help shape AI ethics, prioritize fairness, representation, and shared humanity. I know that many of the following questions and some of the previous ones have been asked repeatedly in companies and universities across the globe. Yet, I do believe that we need to double-click on them, and especially in the age that we're living in now. We have to focus on what distinguishes humans from machines. And what does that? Is it creativity, morality, empathy, or culture? How does AI redefine human relationships and community building as machines become more integrated into our lives? And can human dignity be preserved when AI systems increasingly make decisions in healthcare, in law enforcement, and in employment? What role does spirituality, art, or philosophy play in maintaining our humanity when AI challenges traditional notions of human uniqueness? Can we ensure that as machines replicate aspects of human behavior, they do not diminish the irreplaceable value of human diversity, individuality, and lived experience? Once again, universities must guide these existential conversations, ensuring that AI enhances our shared humanity rather than diminish it. This requires not only rigorous ethical inquiry, but also a commitment to fostering creativity, empathy, and dialogue in both human and machine interactions. In short, I believe that as we revisit all of these timeless questions in this current age of AI, we are called to reimagine the very frameworks that have guided human inquiry for centuries. The answers will provide not only a new shape for the trajectory of AI, but quite possibly for our own future as a civilization. I know that universities, as spaces for critical thought and moral leadership, must rise to the challenge, ensuring that AI advances human dignity, equity, and collective flourishing. This is our institutional calling. It is our mission. Now, at the same time, I promised I was going to ask a lot of questions. At the same time, It goes without saying that AI also compels us to explore entirely new dimensions of thought, raising questions that humanity has never confronted before. These challenges not only require technological expertise, but also demand new philosophical, ethical, and interdisciplinary reflection to guide our understanding of the unprecedented. Agency. What is it? Can machines truly possess it? Intentionality. What is the nature of machine intentionality? Are AI decisions merely computational processes, or do they reflect a new emergent form of intelligence with its own goals, its own priorities? Can machines now possess agency? How do we determine moral accountability when machines act autonomously? Who is responsible when AI systems cause harm? When designers, operators, is it designers, operators, or the systems themselves? How does AI impact autonomy and freedom in a world of surveillance and control? To what extent does the pervasive use of AI in surveillance systems compromise individual privacy and personal liberties? And what ethical frameworks can prevent AI from being weaponized for authoritarian control and mass manipulation? And how do we navigate the geopolitics of AI? How can universities foster global collaboration in AI research while avoiding the widening of power imbalances, digital colonization, or exploitation of the countries in the global south, such as Latin America, countries in Africa? How can we avoid this? And what mechanisms can ensure equitable access to AI technologies and benefits for all nations, rather than concentrating advantages among a few powerful countries or corporations? AI also has an ecological footprint. How do we align this with development and sustainability goals? Can we harness AI to develop solutions to environmental challenges, things that are already underway, of course? And as AI systems demand more and more intense computational power, what are the impacts of this? These questions, new ones that are surfacing with the technology, demand immediate attention and must be central to academic inquiry, to our research, to our public discourse. Universities, as the conscience of society and hubs of innovation, must lead the way in addressing these issues with rigor, with responsibility, and a commitment to the common good. Only by confronting these questions can we ensure that AI contributes to a sustainable, equitable, and just future for humanity. As we stand at the crossroads of an AI-driven future, we also must begin to expand the epistemological, ethical, and economic foundations upon which we build this technology. For too long, the dominant discourse on AI has been shaped by a Western rationalist tradition that prioritizes computation, efficiency, and individual cognition. But intelligence, whether human or artificial, it does not exist in isolation. It is embedded in relationships, in histories, in ecosystems, and in cultures that shape how knowledge is produced, how knowledge is shared, and how knowledge is applied. If we are to develop AI that truly serves all of humanity, we must broaden our analytical canvas, drawing on diverse intellectual traditions that have long engaged with questions of knowledge and interdependence. Indigenous epistemologies provide a critical lens through which we can rethink AI's development, its ethics and governance. These knowledge systems are inherently relational, holistic, interdependent. They see intelligence not as an abstract or extractable entity, but as something that emerges through lived experiences, through community relationships, through deep engagement with the natural and the spiritual worlds. Unlike dominant Western paradigms, which often separate knowledge from ethics and intelligence from wisdom, indigenous traditions emphasize reciprocity, collective responsibility, sustainability, values that we must have with AI. Moreover, the current AI landscape is dominated by a handful of powerful corporations and governments, largely in the global north. Indigenous worldviews challenge the anthropocentric and monopolistic assumptions that dominate AI discourse. They reject rigid separation between human and non-human intelligence, and instead offer a vision of more than human intelligence, in which AI, like animals or ecosystems and ancestral knowledge, AI is then part of a web of interdependent agency. Now, this alternative framework, it compels us to ask, can AI be developed in a way that centers ethical coexistence rather than domination, mutual respect rather than extraction? Can governance models rooted in collective sovereignty replace the current AI paradigm of corporate control and unilateral decision-making? If AI is to be a force for justice and sustainability, we must interrogate the economic foundations that shape its trajectory. Who defines intelligence and to what ends? Whose knowledge systems are recognized? Whose are erased? Who benefits from AI's development? Who bears its costs? How might we create AI that is not just an instrument of economic or political power, but a tool for collective flourishing, environmental balance, and ethical engagement with such a world? An expansion, and really this is the point, and I am also fully aware that I am creating a binary for effect. But still, expanding our epistemological and ontological and ethical understanding, it raises some very profound questions. How can AI interrogate indigenous epistemologies? Again, such as this notion of relational intelligence, this notion of interdependence, non-human agency. How can AI integrate these epistemologies to move beyond reductionist definitions of intelligence and move towards a more inclusive and pluralistic understanding? If intelligence is more than computation, if it is also emotional, if it is also spiritual, if it is also ecological, how must AI be designed to foster ethical coexistence rather than hierarchy? How might indigenous perspectives on reciprocity guide this transformation, ensuring that AI systems enhance relationships rather than extract? I believe that these questions need to be on the table, and that this is not merely an academic exercise. It is an ethical and economic imperative in these times. If we fail to broaden the epistemological canvas of AI, we risk repeating the deep injustices of past technological revolutions, of the age of reason that I spoke about earlier, where dominant groups dictated the terms of progress while others bore the costs of displacement, marginalization, and erasure. But if we succeed, we have the opportunity to build an AI that is not just intelligent, but potentially wise. Not just something that is powerful, but that is potentially ethical. Not just innovative, but that is potentially just. I've been alluding to this throughout the talk. Universities, universities, universities. We occupy a vital position in shaping the development, the deployment, and the impact of AI on our society. As stewards of knowledge and innovation, as stewards of ethical inquiry, we must lead with vision. We must lead with accountability and a commitment to the public good. This leadership involves addressing the multifaceted challenges and opportunities posed by AI through a combination of expertise, collaboration, and proactive engagement. I have 6 points. Advancing ethical AI development. We must take the lead in creating those ethical frameworks that guide AI's alignment, not just with human values, but again, with justice and equity. By fostering interdisciplinary opportunities across our campuses, we can anticipate potential harms, set standards for transparency and fairness, and inclusivity in AI design. And this effort must also evolve dynamically, ensuring ethical guidelines remain relevant as this technology advances. 2, shaping thoughtful AI education. Preparing students to thrive in the AI-driven world requires more than just technical skills. Universities must integrate critical thinking, ethics, and data literacy into all fields, ensuring that students understand the broader societal impacts of AI. And this involves developing curricula that challenges students to reflect on the ethical and existential dimensions of their work, while also equipping them to lead in uncertain and dynamic landscapes. 3, facilitating public dialogue. We are knowledge-producing institutions, and we are uniquely positioned to host open, inclusive discussions on the societal implications of AI. We must act as mediators between academia, between industry, between policymakers, the public, and foster the informed debates on the ethical dilemmas and regulatory policies that must be part of the conversation as we develop AI. By positioning ourselves as hubs of dialogue, universities can ensure diverse perspectives, that those perspectives shape AI's governance. 4, preparing workforce transformation. The rise of AI will change current job markets, redefine human work, and universities must continue to reimagine our role in workforce development, equipping our students, again, with the creativity, with the adaptability, and with the emotional intelligence that is needed. Beyond technical training, our institution should emphasize lifelong learning and societal engagement to prepare our students for the meaningful lives that they will lead in a future post-work world. Number 5, promoting global equity. AI's benefits must be distributed equitably, avoiding those divides that I spoke about earlier between the global north and the global south. What do we do as universities? Especially those in underrepresented regions? We need to work across the aisle, partner with institutions in various geographies. And we must ensure access to technologies and opportunities for all as we engage in those collaborations. This effort includes fostering special collaborations that amplify voices of historically excluded individuals from technological discourse. Finally, 6, championing sustainability. With AI's substantial environmental impact, universities must lead efforts to develop sustainable technologies. Research into energy-efficient algorithms, green computing, renewable energy solutions for AI infrastructure, these must be prioritized. Moreover, universities must integrate sustainability into AI ethics. Universities, we are the ethical beacons in this moment. We are the innovation hubs. We have the duty to guide society through a transformative era. And by advancing these priorities with urgency and purpose, we can ensure that AI becomes a force for equity, shaping a future that reflects humanity's highest ideals. Now, as the president of a historically black college and university, I bring a perspective, obviously, that is shaped by a legacy of resilience and social justice. A perspective deeply rooted in the mission to uplift marginalized communities and to challenge inequalities. HBCUs have long been incubators of intellectual thought, cultural preservation, and transformative leadership. In the rapidly evolving discourse on artificial intelligence, HBCUs are uniquely positioned to lead in several ways. And on this slide, you see a list of institutions that are pushing and on the cusp of becoming R1. HBCUs can help ensure that AI development centers on justice, focusing on systemic disparities in healthcare, education, and criminal justice and economic opportunity. Our institutions with a deep commitment to social equity can help lead the charge in creating AI systems that actively dismantle rather than that reinforce historical inequities. HBCU's rich storytelling traditions offer a powerful lens for designing AI systems that amplify human narratives, that preserve aspects of a cultural heritage, and that protect endangered histories. These are institutions that can spearhead initiatives to use AI in archiving oral histories, in digitizing cultural artifacts, and in ensuring that underrepresented voices are not erased in an age of AI. HBCUs can serve as leaders in fostering AI literacy among students from historically underrepresented backgrounds, ensuring that the next generation of AI developers and ethicists and policymakers are drawn from a broad array of experiences. And HBCUs can provide critical insights into how race, technology, and society intertwine, ensuring that AI research and policy addresses unique vulnerabilities that are faced by multiple communities of color. In an age of AI, HBCUs should not be reduced to followers or merely participants in this discourse. They are essential leaders. And by leveraging their historical mission, their intellectual traditions, and their commitment to justice, HBCUs can help shape a vision for AI that benefits all humanity. In conclusion, I will underscore a couple of points. This is not just a technological revolution. It is a test of our ethical principles, our governance structures, and global solidarity. As university leaders, as students and scholars, as educators, we have a profound responsibility to address the challenges and opportunities AI presents. But above all, we must safeguard what is uniquely human. Our capacity for unpredictability, our capacity for odyssey, for storytelling, for ambiguity, for the ability to learn not merely through data, but through lived experience. If AI redefines human evolution, let it do so in a way that honors our essence. Let's guard against those forces that may contribute towards our gradual erasure. Let us commit to this mission, not merely as researchers, but as stewards of the future. Let us guide the world through this transformative age with more wisdom, with foresight, and with an unwavering dedication to the common good. This is not just a technological moment. It is a moment that calls for a form of intellectual courage, moral imagination. Together, we can shape an AI future that honors dignity for everyone, and at the same time, that advances the ideals of humanity itself. Thank you.
Okay. So I have to say, thank you so much, Ben, and also I'll say that, I was going to have some more questions I would ask you, but you have raised every question I could possibly have thought of. Also, I really want members of the audience to have a chance to talk with you at the reception. So in the interest of time, let me invite everyone to come to the reception to talk to Ben individually. And you've really, I think, set the stage for just provocative conversations and having us think about the world to come. Because I was going to ask you what you thought the role of universities could be here, and you have explained it beautifully. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.